data point. Well, time to move on then. Pashupati Advani of Global Foray joins us on the show. Hi, Mr. Advani. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for speaking to us here on CNBC-TV18. How do you read your market setup as of now? I'll tell you what, I was traveling from Lucknow to Mumbai a couple of weeks back. And the gentleman at the side of me happened to be a market watcher. And, we had a conversation. And towards the end of the conversation, when we were getting off, he, in fact, was giving me a couple of tips. So, I mean, that the fear is always when everyone is giving tips, everyone is talking about stocks. Do you think we're reaching that euphoric stage? Or do you think there is still plenty of juice left, particularly in the broader markets after the big underperformance?
So, obviously what you're saying is cause for concern if everybody's giving tips. At least he was a passenger in the business class with you as opposed to the taxi driver taking to the next stop. But
so that's positive.
Anyway,
we view that positively.
So we're 3/4 of the way there, not 100% of the way there. But I will say one thing, that, India is looking attractive compared to the rest of the world. So we are seeing some flows coming this way. And the last couple of months have been good. FIIs have been coming in. And also this new move of having the nifty trade on Gift City, that's also a good thing, because I think that will bring volumes onshore. The reality is that, there is still the Damocles sword hanging in US where things are not going, well. And I think that if something does happen, like any kind of a jhatka over there, then I think that we will have some hurt. But otherwise, I think we're just going to float along and money continues to come in. And so you might as well enjoy it, like be on the ghoda, but get ready to jump off the ghoda, is what I say.
Which is not easy.
It's not easy. And it gets tougher and tougher now that we're at all-time highs.
It's very similar to the Pashupati's analogy is very similar to mine. He's jumping off the ghoda. I was thinking of how to quickly dart out and, hit the exit route from the party.
You remember what Siddharth Bhamre told us on the show? Like, stay in the car, dance close to the exit door.
Yeah,
but Pashupati, the thing is that it's very hard to find, when is the right time to exit the market. Like, you realize that, I should have exited after the market has given you a 7, 8, 10% kind of fall. So what would be the warning signs, according to you?
No, so one way of doing it is by writing calls above the market and just taking little bites instead of trying to make a big bite out of the market. So smart money is actually doing that. I would not write puts into this market because if there is any kind of a pullback, it will just pull back and hurt you. So I would not be a put writer. But certainly I would look at, if Nifty's at 15,500, then, maybe writing calls at 16,000 or, things like that, you might be able to get some premium. So that's worth considering for the end of the month. So, I guess that's the way you have to play it. And again, one has to be stock specific, industry specific, and then and only then can you actually take little bits out of the market.
Mr. Advani, sorry to come in. Writing calls at what level? Sorry, we missed that.
No, above the market. So if the Nifty is 19.5, so maybe, at 20,000 or, just 19.7, higher than the market. So you take little bites and you grab some of the upside. But I think
if someone isn't a F&O player, right, not comfortable, writing calls and puts, then would you recommend some profit booking on your portfolio? And if yes, which sectors?
Obviously, I would say you definitely have to profit book simply because you've got profit. But the reality is that, you have to look at sectors that are still performing. So I think logistics is still performing. I think that, cement, I like pharma, even though it's been hammered. I don't like IT. So, you can do a combination of, buying some good cement stocks and mid-cap cements are obviously trading a lot cheaper than large-cap cement. So that's probably the place to be. So like that, you can pick and you have to look at, good management, good quality of earnings, where their geographic distribution is, and then, take it from there. But again, India's always been a stock-specific market. And I think that's, definitely that's the way we need to be there, be in it.
So, Pashupati, if I were to ask you, we've had a phenomenal run the last 3 months. What is the biggest risk on the horizon, if you see one? Or is a melt up the actual risk that, suddenly we see this thing taking off? Look at the last 5 days. We've taken 5 sessions to cover 19,000 to 19,500. So is a melt up a real possibility? And then how do you deal with it?
I actually feel what is of concern to me is the rupee dollar, which seems to be continuing to get weaker. So anybody who's dependent on imports, I think those need to be worried about. So, I think, the OMCs are benefiting because they've not yet passed on the lower oil price to the consumer. And I think that's a good sector currently to be in, but it's for a short burst. And I think, any company that's importing, to export again, those are the ones to worry about, because I don't think they're going to get the margin in the exports, and the imports are going to cost more. So those are the things we need to be looking at. Trends like that. Surabhi?
All right. Yeah, Mr. Advani, it's always good when you get timing right. And you have got timing right on Paytm. It was done and dusted. No one was really looking at it. But I recall that you said you made some investments there. And you also made this point, if it pulls back a little, you look to get in. This is a couple of months or so ago. So what are you doing with that investment? Are you booking out and, having a good time with that money? Or do you believe there is still more upside out there? Because you had bought, I remember, and then you were saying you were also looking, I think, at Zomato. So did you happen to buy Zomato as well?
No, I didn't buy Zomato. I bought and sold Paytm because I had also told that Alibaba had sold their stake. And that was a big stake. But then since then, it's jumped about $100. I sold it in the low 700s. That's my loss. But I did get in right. And so I did make money. And I think that, so we move along. At this level, I've not yet looked at it again, but I will look at it again as a business model. But right now, the pain of being $100 off is keeping me away from actually doing research again. Nigel?
Yeah, Mr. Advani exited the party.
Well, that's exactly the point, right? If you book profits, like Rima was asking, you run the risk of watching those stocks head higher, 20-30%, because that's the kind of market we're in. So I guess this has to be sort of played with caution. But Pashupati, tell us, what else are you, reading about these days? What else do you have your eye on? Anything, any interesting themes, any interesting conversations? What's tickling the imagination?
So, I'm also right now having a look at Indus Towers, simply because I think that, the towers are going to be required. Voda's misbehaving by making slow to none payments to them. But I think that has to get resolved sooner rather than later. But that's definitely a stock worth working at. It's come back simply because of the fact that, Voda's sort of not paying its bills properly. But, Airtel is, and, so I think that will also resolve. Again, it would be nice to get some resolution on Vodafone, and also some resolution of what's going on in BSNL, MTNL. So I think that the telecom sector definitely is going to be consolidated, and the big hand of Jio is definitely involved in it. They may end up merging into one or two of these, but they're both one or either into the PSU one or into Vodafone, and then we'll be left with three players. But I think the telecom sector is definitely there, as ARPU seem to be going up a little bit, and as they go up more and more, it's going to be good for all parties concerned. And of course, Jio is going to be the biggest winner because they've got the most customers, and they've got this new product that the 999 phone, which is going to give you, super speed and allow the Janta to get into the space, which has always been Reliance's business model. Surabhi?
All right. Yeah. Mr. Advani, final question then before we let you go. You've told us in the past you don't mind missing out on that consensus that everyone wants to invest in banks. You said you'll rather stay away from the banking names. But I wanted to particularly ask you about HDFC. They've come together now. The fear in the near term is, can they grow on such a large base? And the second factor is NIMs will peter out a little bit in the near term. But how would you view the stock from here on? It's got a great track record over a longer duration, but in the last 3 years, it's been a relative underperformer. So your view on HDFC Bank from here on?
Well, there's business-wise, obviously it can't grow at, whatever, 170 billion or whatever it's going to be worth together as a combined. Obviously, the rate of growth will be slower than it has been in the past. But the reality is that together, they're going to be more than 10% of the index. And that is obviously going to have some effect on what happens in the near term. I mean, the whole merger is going to take place between the 13th and the 15th and the 17th. So I think during that time, after that, we'll see probably some pressure on HDFC Bank for a bit, because some institutions will be having more than 10% of their holdings and will want to cut back, and then others will have to increase because of the ratios. So there'll be a bit of a tussle there. But it is the first choice of funds when they come to India. They look at the banking sector And obviously the HDFC Twins, which is now HDFC Bank, is the first port of call. So, you've got that. You've got money chasing as an entry point. So I'm comfortable with HDFC Bank. I actually own them, and I've had them for a long time. I have sold some on the way. Again, I'm crying about that. But, that's life in the fast lane.
Okay, all right, Pashupati, always great having you in for the conversations. Thank you so much for joining in. We're looking forward to the next one already. You have a good rest of the day. We'll take a quick break on that note. On the other side, as always, we get you check on dealing rooms in our segment D Street Chatter. Let's find out what Nimesh is picking up from the street today. And of course, along with that, trading calls for the last half hour.